The second one is embrace mistakes. I love John Maxwell's quote, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. So be a lifelong learner. I know that I have made 1,000 missteps, and you're going to, but I said this to myself as I was writing my book. Would I, Jess, expect a new author, a never before published author, to know how to do it, to get a published project seamlessly without any help? No, of course not. I would never expect that of an unknown writer. So don't put that pressure on myself. And that was so freeing because I was like, yeah, I'm a first-time author, so I'm going to mess up, and probably a lot. And if you are a published author, you know that it takes a village to birth a book, and it's going to take a lot of mistakes. People don't want to work with or for a hero. They want to work with a human. So don't be the hero in your own story. Just be a human being that's flawed and funny and humble, and just do whatever you can. I learned that from my husband. He's like, babe, he's like, don't be the hero. He's like, I mean, people think they like heroes, but they really don't. Heroes are annoying. They just do everything right all the time. And I was like, okay, fine. So I started collaborating with my cover designer. And this is one of these moments that flicked the imposter syndrome string really hard, because he asked questions that I had no idea what he was talking about. He assumed that I had the lowest level of understanding of publishing, and I knew literally nothing. And I wanted to run away and hide and bury my head in the sand and never publish my book. But I knew, again, I was compelled to finish this one. And so I just was really honest. I said, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never done this before. So you really need to help me talking to someone who's never done this. And he was like, oh, sure, no problem. And he literally explained everything. He explained color choice. He explained theme and what I wanted and artistic expression and who did I want to, I mean, he just started asking all these questions that I did know the answers to. And I was like, okay, whew, I'm okay. I didn't need to have all the technical skills that he assumed that I had from the beginning. And I made plenty of mistakes. Even my final published book has some glaring ones. My sister called me. She was one of my beta readers. And she called me as soon as she had finished it. And she goes, hey, sis. She's like, great book. Love it. Think it's great. Did you know on page 39, there's a giant capital N in front of a word that I don't think you want there? And I was like, no, I didn't know that was there, but thank you so much for pointing that out. So to this day, if you buy my book, you will see on page whatever it is, you'll be like, that's the N that she was talking about. But I made a commitment to myself that all of my mistakes, I was going to just say this to myself: failure is just feedback. All of it. Failure is just feedback. Because if you're a writer, there's more than one book in you. And so just take whatever that is, let it ruminate in you, let it marinate, and then learn from it and move on. All right. So that's the mistakes. That's my second tip. My third tip, here, let me hold on. I just went through my notes here, is practice positive self-talk. This is the hardest part, guys. This is really the hardest part about imposter syndrome. It's actually changing the way that we think, because our thoughts have systematic patterns. And I don't know if you guys do affirmations and things like that, but the authors Newberg and Waldman, they wrote Words Can Change Your Brain. It's a great book. And in their studies, they actually found that over time, as we concentrate on positive thinking, it actually shrinks the fear center of our brain, our amygdala. So it shrinks it as we think more positively. And it actually increases the thickness of the neocortex, which is sort of higher thinking. That's where our higher thinking comes. So we've got to start muzzling these negative and toxic thoughts. So these are the filters that I suggest. Would I say what I'm thinking to a friend? Is what I'm saying fact, or is it opinion? And I love this. Opinions are like armpits because everyone has some, and most of the time they stink, right? Even our own. So sometimes if it's an opinion, you just got to set that thing aside and be like, nope, that's stinky. If it's not a fact, we're moving on. And then the last thing, does it help me or does it hurt me? Sometimes, when we have criticisms, it can help us move forward, but we have to check that. And we have to ask ourselves that question: does this help me, or does it actually just make me feel awful? And if it does, then we need to practice swapping those toxic thoughts. So here's an example. If I say purple elephant, you guys just thought of a purple elephant, right? Some version of it in your brain. Now, you can't not think purple elephant, but you can change that elephant to a green one or a gray one, or you can think of a tiger or something else. And your brain just systematically went through all of those things. So stopping, telling yourself, like, I need to stop thinking this way, is virtually impossible. But what you can do is, as you start to think negative thoughts, here's an example. If you start thinking, wow, I'm never going to be published, I want you to swap that thought for something like this: I am delighted to have the chance to share my story with the world in whatever format I'm able to deliver it. It's different. It doesn't condemn you. It says, nope, I'm going to keep going. And if it gets out there on a blog post, or someone else shares it, or I share it on Instagram or whatever, I'm still going to proceed. And then here's another one. Everything has to be perfect, otherwise it's not worth publishing. That's really condemning, and that's really hard, and it paralyzes us. So swap it out for, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to edit as best I can. I'm going to release my story, and I'm going to learn from the feedback, because I'm a writer. I have a story to tell. I have a truth to share. I'm not going to let imposter syndrome or perfectionism keep me from finishing the project. I'm going to be brave enough to just release it to the world. Right? Does that resonate with you guys? I'm going to check the chat here. Tell yourself what you tell a friend. Thanks, Carey. Yes, it's so true, right? And we would never say some of these things to our friends, ever. Not once would we be like, oh my God, girl, that's never going to get published. That's trash. We would never say that. We'd be like, hey, you know what? I got lost in this section. Maybe you could just like lead me a little bit more. That is what we would say. So we should start talking to ourselves the same way. Okay. Last tip. Comparison kills. Oh, choose to be a cheerleader. Whoops, we'll go back. There we go. This is the millennial cycle we find ourselves in many times. We're on social media. We're seeing all our friends publishing amazing stuff and getting all these book deals and getting their literary agents and all these things. And we can feel like we're behind, that we'll never get there, that our following is pitiful. Why even bother? I mean, all of these kinds of things. So I feel this still to this day. I'm like, why should I even bother? There's so many people saying the same thing. Like, other writers are writing amazing work. Why clutter the internet with my drivel? Like, honestly, but friend, let me just say this. And this is what I say to myself. There's nothing new under the sun except for you. You're unique, right down to your very DNA. That is what is different. We all of us on this chat right now, all of us on this call could rewrite Cinderella. And guess what? Not one single one of them would be the same. They all would have the same arc. They'd have some of the same characters, but not a single one of them would be identical. It would have your unique voice, your unique expression, your unique, perspective. I mean, who knows? One of you guys might choose to tell Cinderella from the mouse's perspective. Like, how cool would that be? I wouldn't have thought of that until just now. I was like, wow, that would be cool. So I just want to say that to you guys, like, if you're an English teacher and you've assigned an essay to 30 kids, you're going to get 30 different ones back. And I recognized that the best way for me to overcome comparison was actually to start promoting other people's work. And it was freeing. The more that I poured into helping other people, and more I poured into cheerleading other people, more doors of opportunity open for myself. And here's what I want to say: cheer for yourself too. That's the hardest part of it, I think, is cheering for yourself. And I struggle with compliments massively. when people came up to me after I finished publishing my book and they had read it and they really liked it and they were like, wow, it was so amazing. I loved it. And I'm very self-deprecating. I was like, oh, thanks. You know, it was just like a little project, whatever that I did, you know, and it was, my husband said, stop doing that. He was like, you are stealing the person's compliment from them. You're like brushing it off as though it was nothing. He's like, stop doing that. And I'm like, oh, okay. We don't have to get all sassy about it. And I was like, but I don't know what to do. I feel so uncomfortable in those situations. He goes, I know that you do. I can see it. And he said, here's what you have to say. Thanks. That's it. I'm like, wow, okay, that seems so easy. But the more that I practice just the simple, thanks, glad you liked it, the easier that became. I still am uncomfortable. I still like want to run away, but I just want to give you, that's like my golden nugget. If you're like me and it's hard for you to receive compliments, just a simple thank you and silence will do the trick.